You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, the John Fredericks Radio app. Thanks for being with us. Joining us now, without further ado, Mark Mix. Mark is the president of the National Right to Work Committee. Mark, thank you for your patience. I know we had to wait a little bit as we got through our panel last time. Well, they're doing it. They're doing it in Virginia. They just dropped the bill, get rid of right to work, right in January. Boom, done. A couple of weeks, a week or so after the election, everybody expecting Spanberger's going to sign it. Hope against hope. It makes no sense when people are worried about the economy. They're worried about jobs in Virginia. But here we go again. Let's wipe out right to work. Let's get jobs out of here. Let's let businesses not come in. How do we stop this, Mark Mix?
Well, John, obviously good to be with you, and lots changed since we talked last in Virginia and the Commonwealth, and frankly, you're going from Ukraine to Virginia, so there's trouble everywhere, John, and so I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. You're right, they introduced the Right to Work repeal bill yesterday. We see the draft of it. It's real simple. They're going to force workers in Virginia to pay dues or fees in order to keep their jobs to private organizations, i.e. a labor union. We just got to mobilize people, John. We've got to let them know what's going on. I mean, in the campaign segment, there's a lot of noise out there, a lot of issues, a lot of things happening. But when it comes to the legislative session, this is when you focus on a particular piece of legislation, and they're going to have to defend this position. Abigail Spanberger is kind of still ambiguous about where she wants to be on this. She hasn't said outright that she's going to repeal right to work. We suspect, based on her record that you and I have talked about before, voting not once but twice to repeal all right to work laws in the country. I'm not sure what changes in her mind from that position in Congress to this position as governor-elect of the Commonwealth of Virginia. So we're just going to have to make sure we're out meeting with Virginians, talking about this, and focus singularly on this issue, the issue of forced unionism and how this came about in Virginia. The idea that Virginia has been one of the best states for doing business in 3 of the last 6 years, according to CNBC. Part of that portfolio and part of that, the reason for that is right to work. We know that. We know the growth in manufacturing jobs in right to work states, the growth in private sector employment, right to work states, all far exceeds that in forced unionism states. And the migration of people, for instance, John, from New York and Illinois and California to states where opportunity exists, because states like North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Virginia have right to work laws that will protect workers' liberty and freedom in the workplace.
We got to fight this because, look, this is just what's so bad about it in a commonwealth like Virginia is that you have a job, you're working for a company, you're in a trade, you're a craftsman, and you've chose not to join a particular union. And as soon as this thing gets repealed and it becomes law in July, they're going to start taking money out of your check. That's it. Any company that's going to come in here that is right now here, I mean, Virginia, looking at, let me relocate there, let me bring my business there under the fact that there is a right to work provision, well, they're going to reevaluate that, Mark. Those jobs are gone.
Yeah, exactly. And John, your point is well taken. There are a lot of companies that have multiple locations, whether it be in different states. And if they're unionized, for example, like UPS, United Parcel Service, they have a master contract that says anytime a right to work law is repealed, automatically dues will be taken out of the paychecks in that state. So every UPS driver that lives in Virginia, I mean, if this happens, immediately that $50 or $60 a paycheck will come right out through dues deduction, because the contract says, hey, if you live in a right to work state and they repeal their law, which has only happened once before, you'll have that money taken out of your paycheck. So it matters, and it matters about job creation. But more importantly, John, it matters about the political environment in a state. Frankly, if you believe that workers should be forced to pay a private organization to get or keep their job, then you're in a very, very small minority that believes that. You might be a union official or a business agent for a union, perhaps. I'm not sure. Just guessing.
Do we have? We're going to need 2 senators, 2 state senators in Virginia to vote no on this. Have we identified them? Are there potential 2 Democrat state senators, maybe a Cray Deeds or somebody that is going to be like, this just isn't a good thing?
I hope so, John. There's 4 or 5 districts out there that are in play. But as you know, better than most, I mean, you drive your bus around Virginia, you talk to people, you see what's happening. The polarization is really on the left is really crazy. I mean, look at New York City. I mean, we are now faced with a situation where we have a defined socialist Marxist as the mayor of New York City. That extreme left position is kind of the position of the Democrat Party now, and they're pulling everyone to that side. So in a Democratic primary, one of the things that you have to worry about, no matter where you live, is that element is mobilized and energized, and they're interested in defending their positions in those Democrat primaries. Hopefully there are a few state senators that will look at this, and maybe even some House of Delegates members who are freshmen that perhaps didn't take a position on the issue during their campaign will look at it and say, hey, this is not politically smart, and certainly it's not individually or economically smart when it comes to the Commonwealth of Virginia.
We need to mobilize. There's no question about it. We need to have a united front on this thing. We need to mobilize it. I mean, we did it for the fall election, and although 87% of people agree with us, the Winsome Sears campaign was such a fiasco. The message really couldn't break through. So what do we do now? We have to mount a defense because 87% of Virginians believe in right to work.
Yeah, John, it's now an issue of that blocking and tackling that is in the public policy business. You identify people that support you, you mobilize them, and you get them to take action. The one thing that a politician thinks about after getting elected is to get reelected. And so if you can create enough pressure that says, hey, this may jeopardize my reelection, you get them to start thinking about policy. And, this is basically just the blocking and tackling of American politics. And that's what we have to do. And none of these things, protecting individual freedom and liberty, is not easy. It's something you have to stay vigilant on. I mean, smarter people than I have said about, basically one generation, if you miss it, the trouble that comes from that is really problematic. And so in right to work's been in Virginia since 1947. It was passed because, unions were pushing and basically racist unions were pushing to keep black workers out of the workplace. And it was just an amazing story when Virginia became a right to work state in 1947. We take it for granted now. We take it for granted. And so we're going to have to re-educate a lot of people about what it means. To your point, John, you wake up and your paycheck now has a deduction you didn't count on, that it wasn't there previously. That's what the stakes are.
So where do we go from here?
Well, mobilize, identify and mobilize, John. That's where we go from here. We're working on that right now. In fact, we've got a team on the ground in Virginia that's spreading out across the Commonwealth in those targeted Senate districts, starting to mobilize people, identify our active supporters and others who believe in right to work and freedom in the workplace. We're just going to have to be there to talk about it and make it a high-profile issue. If it's a high-profile issue, that tends to militate in our favor when it comes to opposition to something like this.
See, that's why I love working with you, Mark, and I love having you on. You're a doer. I mean, here was this been everybody else is licking their wounds and whining about Virginia. Here you are. You're already mobilizing people, getting boots on the ground, getting the staff going. I wish I could put you in charge of the referendum that's going on in Virginia. We'd probably have a chance to defeat it if I could put you in charge of that, man.
Yeah, well, John, look, I've been doing this for a long time, and this particular issue is not easy. Being on defense is a little bit easier. Being on offense is really hard because we're up against organized labor. I mean, literally, the revenue stream that will be generated by forcing Virginia workers to pay union dues is literally in the hundreds of millions of dollars a year. So there's a lot at stake here for organized labor. When you go to a state where you can guarantee that workers will have to pay you in order to get or keep a job, then you start organizing and mobilizing on their side. And that's what's happened in states that allow forced unionism. The union density in right to work states is about half that in forced unionism states. And so it's purely a revenue thing for them. I mean, this argument, John, it has nothing to do with capital. It has nothing to do with employers. It's a battle between rank and file workers and the union officials that claim to represent them. Because a right to work law simply says that worker can choose whether or not to support that union official. The battle is a civil war inside the union. It's an intramural battle, and rank and file workers are, they don't understand that what this is about is union officials saying, look, you're the reason why we're not succeeding because you won't give us the money and we can't force you to pay us. And that way we can be involved in politics and all those other things that are basically disconnected from the shop floor. And so that's what happens in states that don't have a right to work law. That's what's happening and will happen in Virginia if workers are forced to pay union dues or fees to get or keep a job.
See, I am so with you on this. And one of the things that people are not going to realize is the number of the job growth in Virginia. One of the linchpins of that is our right to work apparatus that's in place. That is an attractive, and every governor has said that, even the Democratic governors. have had to admit that when they go out and try to recruit companies like Terry McAuliffe did. I mean, he used to tell me that, yeah, I'm not in favor of it, but, that's one of the reasons I get companies here. I mean, that's just reality. So you have the politics, but then you have the reality of the situation. And so, Virginians are going to have less opportunity because we're going to have minimal job growth now. And that's a real issue, Mark.
Yeah, I think you're right, John. And we've got to take that message to the folks in Virginia as the legislators convene in Richmond starting early in January. And we're just going to have to be ready to fight it. And they're going to try to pass it quickly. They're going to try to pass it silently. They're going to just try to move it through like politicians want to do, because, the hardest thing for them to do is stand on the floor of the legislature and raise their hand, yes or no. Voice votes, unanimous consent. These are the mechanisms that don't give us in this grand experiment of self-government, the accountability and the ability, the transparency to see what they're trying to do to us. And we certainly know if we don't pay attention, bad things generally happen if that's the case.
Well, we're going to need advocates in the state Senate on the Republican side. We're going to need advocates in order to help us do this, because the best way to defeat this is just simply get two Democrat senators that understand the ramifications of what this means, and the fact that the polling in Virginia is 87% people want right to work to stay. And so, we got to identify a couple of people, but we need some help on the Republican state Senate side, because you're not going to do anything in the House. I mean, it's like ridiculous with the majorities they've got now. But the state Senate, two people end this thing.
Yeah. Well, we're not conceding the House of Delegates either. Putting them on record on supporting compulsory unionism is an important part of this battle as well. Making sure that if they're going to pass a bill, then having accountability, the ability to hold those delegates accountable, is a really important part of this project too. I mean, that's what this is about. It's about accountability and transparency, and making sure that we make it as difficult as possible for these politicians, first of all, to do it in private and in silence, but secondly, to basically vote for a bill that literally allows a private organization to force you to pay union dues or fees in order to keep your job. I mean, we shouldn't even have to fight this, John, but we do. It goes back to the 1930s. You and I have talked about this a lot of times, and you have great insight on it as well. It's a battle, and it's not surprising that we have to fight for these things that matter. And unfortunately, the odds are stacked against us. But, the odds have been stacked against a lot of people that have fought for great things like freedom and liberty. And we'll just continue to fight for it. That's what we have to do.
What's amazing about this? If you took the confiscation away, if you just took that away, and it was like, okay, we want forced unionism, but, we can't take money out. You would have no opposition, right? I mean, this is all about them getting money. This is what this whole thing is about. As you pointed out, it's about the organized labor getting money, confiscating it out of people's checks, and building their coffers. Because if you took that aspect out, if somebody says, all right, we're going to get rid of a right to work, but, you have to join the union, but, paying for it is up to you. Nobody would fight. There would be no opposition, or it would just go away, because it's all about the money. They just want to take your money.
Yeah, that's right, John. It's really kind of simple. The calculus is, good unions, the unions are actually doing their job. And this, your dad knew this, they were doing their job. Their people are glad to join and be involved.
Absolutely.
Bad unions are the ones that don't deserve the compulsion. Good unions don't need it. Bad unions don't deserve it. And when I say bad unions, look at what the unions that were driving the Mondami campaign in New York City, the SEIU, the United Auto Workers Union. Do you think there are UAW members in Virginia on South Side that say, I'm for this Mondami character? No way, no how. But unions can take the money out of the paychecks of these workers from the forced unionism states, the 24 states that still allow this, and they can use it for political causes in New York City, in Sacramento, California, in Washington, D.C., and now in Richmond, Virginia. That's what's happening. And it is about the money. And it really is an intramural battle between union officials and the rank and file workers they claim to represent.
Well, you look at Mondami, what he did. I think he said, Starbucks wouldn't unionize or something, or the people voted out. I don't know, the workers voted it out. And he told New Yorkers to not go to Starbucks. So they had a vote. The workers at Starbucks didn't want to join the union. So then Mondami says, don't shop at Starbucks. What? I mean, they don't want to join it. And
Yeah.
now it's like, let's boycott Starbucks so they don't have a job. This is the insanity that's going on, man.
Yeah. And, when you look at Starbucks, and even though that gets national attention, I mean, the Red Cup Day and the alleged job actions across the country, I mean, we're talking about less than 1% of the Starbucks units that have, unionized or vote for. And that you don't even count the ones that have voted no, the ones that the election went away because the union knew they were going to lose it. Look, if workers want to join unions, federal law protects that right. There's no question about it. Joining together voluntarily to amplify your voice is one thing that the federal government protects. The idea of compulsion and force is an entirely different argument. When you say that your union is going to speak for you in the workplace, even though you didn't ask for it, didn't want it, and didn't vote for it, and yet they're going to add insult to injury by saying you can't talk to your employer, only I can, and then they're going to force you to pay for that representation, something's wrong with that formula, and we know what's wrong with that formula. Yeah.
It's insane. Follow Mark at the Right to Work Committee, the National Right to Work Committee. And Mark, I'm going to text you after this because we got to mount a defense here in Virginia. We're fighting on a lot of fronts, but we got to get it done. Mark, thanks for being with us. Talk soon. Thank you. You're on the John Fredericks Media Network. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Talk soon. We're going to be right back here on the John Fredericks Media Network with your calls, 888-480-JOHN. See you.